to my podcast on real relationships. My name is Sophie Passon, and I am a relationship expert, international speaker, and best-selling author of the book Your Other Half. I decided to start this podcast because, in my opinion, relationships are currently not being portrayed as what they really are. Whether you're watching TV or the news or on social media, the perception given to people is wrong. And my aim is to talk about what happens in the real world, talk about real story, and listen to what real people think, do, or go through, as opposed to creating expectations of something that doesn't actually exist. I may not agree with everything that is said by my guests, but it is their chance to express their opinions and their stories. And here today we have Kev Farrow. Hi, Kev.
Hey, Sophie, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. You?
Yeah, fine, thanks.
Actually, I've not even said what we're going to talk about yet. So what we're going to talk about is coming out. So, first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
All right. Well, let's see. I was born. I'm 61 years old. That was 61 years ago. Wow. Did the usual thing, you know, the primary school, the secondary school, got myself a job, 2 or 3 jobs actually. And then when I was 29, I had a little bit of a life-changing situation. A friend of mine that I used to go to school with, secondary school, who worked on ships, said to me, Kev, do you fancy coming out for a month and replace my wife? His wife at that time was his assistant photographer on a cruise ship. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying, Rob, there's no way that's going to happen. So he said, well, ask the company. So I did. And lo and behold, they said, Kev, go for it. Go and have fun for a month. We'll keep your job open. So I did. I went out in the May of 1985. I flew, something I'd never done before, never traveled before. I mean, I was so nervous, Sophie, I can't tell you. So I flew from Gatwick out to Barbados, joined a ship called the Cunard Countess, did a month out there. I have to admit, I don't think I can say that I can look back and say that I was more nervous than I was traveling up to Gatwick and flying out. I was so nervous.
Fair enough.
You know what? I got on that ship. I did a month on that ship. And by the time I came off that ship at the end of my month, I came down the gangway and I was crying so hard, I didn't want to leave. Oh. I'd had such a good time. Yeah. So therein started my journey of working at sea. Mm-hmm. And I did that for 32 years and I gave up on April the 25th of this year.
Yeah. It was very recent and obviously an adjustment in itself, really.
Too right. Tell me about it.
So how did you find out that you were gay?
Right. You know, so many people say, are you born gay or is it something you pick up along the line? Mm-hmm. You know what? I find that a very difficult question to answer. I mean, are you born gay? I didn't. At 2 or 3 years of age or 4 or 5 years of age, I had even no clue what gay was. So, to my opinion, I think you've got to be open to all sorts of different things, and maybe I've got a bit more of an open mind than most. And it wasn't until we all go through that puberty stage, that adolescent phase, that bit where our hormones go absolutely crazy, and then we begin to question things, don't we? Mm-hmm. And when I was about 17 or 18, without going into details, I had an experience, a gay experience. It wasn't a particularly happy experience, I have to admit. And I came out of that actually feeling totally anti-gay, that I didn't want anything to do with anything gay whatsoever. It was, I'll be totally honest with you, it was quite traumatic. And that was when I was about 18, I suppose, 18, 19. And that set me on a course of, oh no, I'm not interested in this at all. Mm-hmm. But I secretly had to admit, Sophie, that what happened, I enjoyed.
Yeah.
Now, I couldn't tell anyone that. I couldn't tell my friends, family. I couldn't tell anybody. I had to keep that to myself.
Yeah.
And I kept that to myself for about 11 years, 10, 11 years.
So did you have other relationships in that sort of like period or?
No.
No, fair enough.
No, nothing at all. And it wasn't until I joined ships when I was 29 where I'll be totally honest with you, I think it helped me on my path to coming out.
Mm. Yeah, but and I think as well because you're away, so the judgment and the look of others isn't constantly on you, as it were.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, nobody cares out on a cruise ship. It's a totally different environment. You're away from everything that you know, everyone that can pass judgment on you, and nobody passes judgment out on a cruise ship. It's a totally different family feeling and environment, and it's somewhere where you can be yourself. And I'll tell you the little story. It's quite fascinating, actually. I mean, I really wasn't accepting myself when I went out there.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I started going out with a female, lovely lady called Susie, who was the hostess on board the ship at the time. And we're still very, very close friends to this very day.
Mm-hmm.
We had a relationship for about 2 years. And one day I was sat on her bed and she said, Kevin, can I ask you a question? I said, yes. She said, do you like men? It threw me sideways.
Yeah, I guess it's not something you weren't necessarily expecting.
No. Well, I knew from experience that you always answer a question with a question. So I said, why do you ask? She said, well, I've just been noticing the little things you say and the way you look at certain people and just actions and so on and so forth. And I'm thinking to myself, my goodness me, are you looking inside my mind, girl? You know, I'm thinking, good grief. So anyway, I literally had to admit, I had to be honest with her. And I said, well, yes, I do. And God bless her, she said, you know, Kevin, she said, so many of my friends are gay. And she said, I'll be totally honest with you, they are probably some of the nicest people I have ever met. So please don't think that it's anything negative. It isn't. Obviously, our relationship changed dramatically because of that. But I think in reality, Sophie, it grew. Our friendship became a lot deeper. Obviously, we weren't that close anymore because I'd admitted what I was. But that started me on my journey.
And would you say that was when you actually came out, as it were? Did you start telling friends and family, or how did that happen?
Yeah, it started on the ship. It started with my colleagues on the ship. You know, it's like, hey, you never guess what happened last night, all that sort of thing. And when I came home from my first contract, I started telling my closest friends. Then I went back and did another contract. Then I came home and told a few more people. And it got to the point, Sophie, where I had told pretty much most of my close friends, but I hadn't told any of my family. I was a little bit concerned about that because I'm thinking, what if my brother, my mum, finds out about this from someone other than me? That's not a good place to be. She needs to hear it, or they need to hear it from me. So how did I solve that problem? Well, I was working at the time for a company called Manders Paints and Wallpaper in Salisbury. My boss was a guy called Roy Page. God bless him, he's not around anymore, but he was what's known as a Samaritan. And I confided in him one day and I said, Roy, I said, I need to talk to you. He said, yeah, sure, Kev, what's the problem? He said, well, I said, can we like go somewhere and just chat? So we did. We drove up to Old Sarum. We sat in the car park and I basically blurted out my story to him. And he said, he was very supportive and said, have you told your mum yet? And I said, no. And I said, that's the thing that's really concerning me. He said, right, this is what I suggest you do. Now, at the time my mum was dealing with my grandmother wasn't in the best place in terms
How old were you at the time?
I was about 29, 30, I suppose. Right. Yep, I was a late comer. Let's face it, I was late. Anyway, he said, right, here's what you do, Kev. Don't say anything to your mum, but write a simple 1 page explaining what's happened, where you are and how you feel. Give it to me and I will phone your mum up one day when you're back at sea and I will arrange to go over and have a cup of coffee with her and present her with your note. I said, do you feel that's the best way? And he said, yes. I said, at this time, I think that's the best way, Kevin. I said, okay. So I put my confidence in Roy, went back.
Yeah, which is quite a lot of confidence because he could have gone like really badly wrong, really.
Yeah, it could have. So I went back to sea. At one point, Roy contacted me, said, I've already been round to see your mother, Kevin. And surprisingly, she took it quite well. In fact, the thing she said, which probably most mothers will say is, Kevin or Roy, I knew he was all along.
Mm.
I knew he was all along. She said, I keep getting these plain brown envelopes in the post. I'm wondering what they are. I mean, nothing major, but she knew. But you know what? The thing she was more upset about was the fact that she felt I couldn't come to her directly and tell her directly.
Yeah, I think
That was the
it's a
thing.
hard call. I mean, a friend of mine came out when we were about 18, 20. I can't exactly remember. And he probably came out when, because obviously I'm French originally, but when he was here with me for a few months in England, the first year I came here. And he then went home and told his parents, and it was like months and months and months of struggles, to be fair. They
Yeah,
really, really did not take it well at all, because of what other people would think, because of judgment, because of different values, culture, whatever. And it's
yeah.
something that's really, really difficult to do.
It's probably the most difficult thing to do, to be quite honest with you, to come out to your parents, because
Mm,
there's the unknown. I've got a colleague, well, an ex-colleague now, of course, because I don't work on ships anymore, but my lovely friend Gretchen, who admitted to me years ago in her first or second contract that she was gay. And
mm,
I said, have you told your parents yet? And she said, no, I haven't, Kev. But she said, I know I desperately need to tell them. She said, I've told one of my brothers, and he's been very encouraging and supportive. She said, I can't tell my other brother because I know what he'll say, because she knows him. But she said, I am so in fear of telling my mum and dad, because she said, I was sat home one day and something came on the TV news about a gay something, or a rally, a march or something. And my dad got up and turned the television over to the other channel and said, if I find out that any of my kids are gay, they're out of this place.
mm.
And she said, I am so, so reluctant to tell them. But I said, you know, Gretch, at some point, you really need to sit down and do so. And I said, I think you'll be actually surprised at the
What
outcome.
we say. And what was the outcome?
Yeah, she hasn't done it yet.
Oh, blimey, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you know, it's something that's hanging very heavily on her shoulders, God bless her.
Mm. And would you say that over the years you've felt prejudiced in that way, or have people been quite accepting in general of your sexuality?
Most people are very accepting, I'll be totally honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are some people, more acquaintances than friends, I suppose, like your next door neighbor, the person who lives over the road. They don't need to know. But the people, my circle of friends, my family that know me, pretty much everyone knows now. And, you know, before you come out, it weighs heavily on your shoulder, and it's a massive, massive thing. It's right there in the forefront of your mind.
Mm-hmm.
However, once you've done it, it's like,
Yeah, it's gone, isn't it?
that was no big deal. Let's move on.
I think sometimes it's the anticipation, isn't it? It's not so much a fear of something happening or whatever. It's the anticipation and the thing that we start to play in our mind of what they're going to say and how they're going to react, where actually you don't have a clue until you do it.
No, you don't. And the thing is, you know, you read these horror stories of kids that have come out to their parents, and the parents have literally dumped them out on the street because they just cannot accept it. And that is an incredibly sad thing. It really is incredibly sad. You know, what does that say about their parents?
Yeah, I think it's acceptance, isn't it? And it is very, I think we can all be guilty at times to see things in a particular way, or to look at them from our own experiences and our own judgment place. But it's very difficult, because you would want someone, like your parents, to accept you for who you are. But sometimes actually, do they know, even when you think that they know who you are, do they know who you really are? Or is it just the perception of you?
Well, it's also at that point when you do decide to come out, it is at that point, that very moment in time, where you need their support. It's critical that you need their support at that time, because you're laying your heart on the table. You know, you're putting it out there, and it's at that point, I mean, yeah, you hold your breath and go, please, 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 please accept this. You know, my mum, I'll give you a typical example. My mum looked at me and said, well, Kevin, she said, you're exactly the same person as before, when I didn't know this. She said, the only thing that's changed is I know a little bit more about you.
I
That's
think
the
the
only
other thing as well is understanding that sometimes some people will take some time to process the information. And yes, if someone is just about to come out to the parents or the family, friends, whoever, they may not react the way that you want them to, but it might just be temporal. Oh, I can't say the words. It might not last. That's what I'm trying to say. The French accent was really going to come out there. No, it might not last. It might just be that, it is a shock to them. They need to process the information and deal with it in their own time and in their own way.
Yeah, well, a typical example of that is my brother. Now, his ex-wife, I decided to take my brother and his ex-wife out for dinner. We went out for a dinner in a restaurant in Salisbury, and that was the platform upon which I decided that I was going to let them know. And I know as soon as I had said it that his ex-wife, Sue, didn't take it at all well. Mm-hmm. Terry went a bit quiet. And over the years, I think he's accepted it, but whether it sits well with him or not, I don't know. And I don't think it does. His current wife is just totally fine with everything. And I think perhaps to a certain extent that's influenced my brother, and he's now more accepting of it as well. But there was a little story I will share with you. This was when Terry was with his ex-wife. Her son, Chris, who was about 12, 13, I suppose, before she knew that I was gay, she was complaining that Chris was, I don't know, just getting in the way and so on. I said, well, listen, I said, the next summer holiday, I said, why don't I have him for a few days and take him off your feet? He said, you can come down and stay with me for a few days. We can go down to the beach. We can go see movies. We can do whatever. She said, would you? I said, of course I will. So I did. He came down. We had a few days together. I took him back up. He had a great time. But as soon as I told her about the situation, did I ever get asked again?
Mm. Yeah, it's confusion in her mind, really, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So what challenges would you say you've had to encounter?
I suppose, challenges. I've been fairly lucky. I mean, I haven't really had that many challenges, to be quite honest with you. I mean, there are some people that I would say probably 90% of people that are gay, you probably wouldn't even know they were gay. Yes, there's the 10% that are flamboyant, that dress in a quote unquote feminine way, that are out there, that are on the scene. I'll tell you a little story. Last Friday night, I went up with a gay friend of mine and I said, let's go down and do the gay scene in Bournemouth. He said, oh my God, he said, I've never done that, Kev. I said, well, neither have I, to be quite honest with you. So we did. Totally disappointed with it. It's like,
fair enough.
Yeah, what the hell is all this? I mean, again, when you're younger, I think you feel as though you need to prove that you're gay. Yeah. So you go out there and you want to be seen with the people that are gay. You want to do this. You want to go on rallies and do this and so on. But I'll be totally honest with you, as you get a little bit older, you don't care. It just fits into your psyche of normal life. I mean, I've got a lot of gay friends around me, and they're, again, I say, they're lovely people. They really are. No, I haven't really had that many challenges, to be quite honest with you.
And to be fair, I think, as you're saying, some people are wanting to do the thing because they're young, and it depends on the personality as well, doesn't it? So talking of this, tell me a bit more about your journey and your relationships.
Oh dear. Open up that one, won't you? I know. Right.
Just be brief,
Journey, right. Well, I say the journey started basically on cruise ships. I was very lucky. Within the first couple of years of me being on cruise ships, I met a guy called Sugeng, who became my first partner. He was Indonesian, worked in the dining room. And we had a very, in the gay world, I believe is a very long relationship, 14 years. That ended in 2012. Unfortunately, it was an unfortunate incident, but it's something that happened. And there's a little quirk to this little story, because just as we were breaking up, lo and behold, guess what Kev starts doing? Looking at females.
Okay.
What are you doing looking at females for? Well, I look at this girl called Dana, funnily enough. She was a nurse on board, just come on board, and I'm thinking, God, I fancy that. She's cute. Well, long story short.
Come on.
Long story short, I start going out with her.
Right, okay.
Now, she had issues of her own, and I'm not going to go into that. But sexually, it wasn't good. I was trying, I think at that point, I was maybe reeling from, my relationship with Sue Gang. I hadn't given it time to recover, and I just went straight at a bull at a gate into a totally different heterosexual relationship, going, you know what, I can't stand this gay thing anymore. I need to get into a normal life. What is normal? Hello? Yeah, right. So that lasted, a year and a half at the most. And I'm thinking, no, this is just not doing it for me. And everybody was saying to me on Facebook, on emails, going, Kevin, you're gay. What are you doing going out with a female? And I said, I just don't know at this point. Anyway, that all faded away. Within a year, I started going out with a guy called Ferdinand. He was Filipino, who was guest relations actually on one of our ships. And to this day, we are still going out together. Now, he's Filipino, I say, he's in the Philippines. I'm here in the UK. So, yeah, it's the long distance thing. Not the easiest thing to do, but we struggle and survive at this point in time.
Yeah. And would you say that there's more pressure in a gay relationship?
Yes, probably.
In what way?
I think there's still a slight, maybe because it's my generation, there's still a slight stigma in, maybe me going with my partner to a party that's being hosted by heterosexual couples and so on. And sometimes I feel, are these people really accepting of this? So you sort of go and you don't obviously kiss in public, you don't hold hands in public, you don't show any sort of affection in public. So there's that side to it, I suppose. But yeah, apart from that, no.
Fair enough. I think you're probably right. There is definitely a generation thing going on. I think that for people who are in their 20s or 30s, even to a degree now, there's probably easier to come out than it would have been, some 30, 40 years ago.
Totally agree. I mean, really, when I look back, we were relatively lucky, really, I suppose, in being a generation where it was beginning to be accepted. I mean, I've seen, the acceptance of gay marriages and so on and so forth. I mean, really, through my life, I've seen a lot of acceptance. But for someone, as you say, who's in their 20s and 30s, they're coming in at a point where, it's almost the norm nowadays. So it is getting a lot easier throughout the world, in particular here. Yes.
And I was going to say, yeah, we're obviously we are in the UK, which is very, very open compared to even, some European countries or some areas of the States, for instance, and other, kind of continents. But it is, I mean, talking from the UK, I would say that it is so much more open nowadays.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, a few years ago, when it was accepted or it became official here in the UK, I remember two of my gay friends, Joe and Peter, were the first two to have the registration and so on at the Bournemouth Town Hall. Right. This was a number of years ago now. And I said, gosh, I didn't know about that. And he said, well, to be quite honest with you, Kevin, we wanted to keep it a low-key affair. We only had 3 or 4 people there who were our really, closest family and friends. And you see, there's the difference, isn't it? There's the difference between someone who's a little bit more mature, who doesn't want to splash it across Facebook and so on, just want to keep it low-key because that's the way it is.
Yeah. And in terms of your own journey of self-acceptance, because as you said, to start off with, you were probably, gay from a very young age, then you weren't sure, then, you had this long-term relationship, then you went back to a woman and then back again into the gay scene, as it were. So what would you say you found difficult or easy in terms of self-acceptance?
You mean acceptance of me or acceptance of people?
Yeah, acceptance of you by you.
Gosh. I think I realized that I had made a major mistake by putting my effort into forming a relationship with a female.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got over that particular hurdle and got back into quote unquote my normality, I suppose, or my life, I found for me, it was just a weight off my shoulders. I couldn't deal with that heterosexual thing. Being in a slightly more gay or a gay relationship for me was far more accepting, and I personally feel a lot more at ease and at peace where I am now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting as well, because I was just thinking as we were talking, obviously people don't know this bit, but I first met you in 2013, and I really didn't know at the time, I did. And interestingly, if we go with timings of what you said, you were probably in that heterosexual relationship with a lady from the ship at that point anyway, which is probably why I didn't pick it up either.
It could well be. But you know what? A lot of people will look at me and go, I didn't know you were gay, Kev.
Mm.
And I said, well, that's because I don't go around going, oh, hi, sweetie, how are you? I mean, I'm me. And again, as I go back to that point that I stated earlier, probably 95% of people that are out there that are gay, you wouldn't know. The general public wouldn't know they were gay. I mean, quote unquote, I think I'm a fairly normal sort of person. And I mean, if you stop me in the street and talk to me, the first thing that would come to mind would not be, oh my God, he's gay.
Mm. Yeah. And what would you say? What would be your advice to someone worried about coming out?
I've been there. I've done it. I used to write about it. I've got reams and reams of my thoughts and feelings about, because you feel as though at that point you are the only one that's going through this. Trust me, you are not. Hundreds and thousands of poor gay and lesbian kids are going through the very same thing at the very same time that you are. So, I mean, if it helps get support, know that you are not the only one out there. These days, it's so easy to get support online. Mm-hmm. I didn't have that when I was younger. I wish I had, to be quite honest with you. It might have helped me, perhaps. It is a major hurdle. You won't find it so difficult to tell your friends about your feelings and how you are, but you will find it difficult to tell your family, and the closer they are to you, the more difficult you'll find. But there has to come a point at some point where you do need to tell them. You have to be honest with yourself, and you have to be honest with them. And I'll tell you something, the moment you do it, you just feel like, wow, that's a weight off my shoulders, and now I can move on, because it does hold you up.
Yeah, and I think that, and that doesn't matter how old you are. I think there's a point where you've got to be true to who you are, and if people don't like it, they don't like it. Slightly different, sometimes we withhold information just purely because it's our own business and we don't want anybody to know about it, because that's just, for us. But with something like this, it is part of who you are. And therefore, I think, being honest with people is also being honest with yourself.
On Country File, which is a BBC TV programme on a Sunday evening a few months ago, they had a little section about farmers, gay farmers. Mm-hmm. And it was fascinating because there were all ages. And as you say, some of these people were probably up in their 60s or even more. And in a way, I think it's sad that there are people out there that are my age or older than me who still haven't taken that step to come out, because they're living behind a shroud. They're living a life of hiding behind the curtain. That's not healthy.
No.
Seriously, it's not healthy.
And finally, because we're kind of getting to the end of our time together already.
Are we really?
I know. What would be your advice to people who feel prejudiced?
People who are prejudiced are welcome to their own opinions, obviously, and you're not going to be able to change them. That's for sure. They'll be deep-rooted. There might be reasons for them being prejudiced. I mean, they might have had some form of experience themselves and felt guilty about it. There will be various reasons why they're prejudiced. We all have our own opinions. And you will find, as you touched on it actually a little bit earlier, where you'll say that when you do come out, sometimes you're going to lose some of your friends because of it. Your true friends, your true family will stick with you because they are your true friends. You will lose, particularly those people that are prejudiced. Yes, you will lose them. But the question you have to ask yourself is, were they really friends in the first place?
Yeah, completely. Well, Kev, thank you so much. That is it for today. So thanks for talking to us.
Thank you. That half an hour or whatever it was went by terribly quickly. My teeth gone now.
So if you enjoyed the show, then please subscribe. You can also leave us a review and, more importantly, come back for the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you.